The boy didn't cry on the bus anymore. That was the part that hurt the most. At first, when it started, he would come home with red eyes and a tight jaw, trying to hold it together until he reached his room. His father would hear the door close softly, too softly for a 12-year-old boy, and know that something had happened again. But lately, Noah came home quiet in a different way. Not the kind of quiet that comes before tears. The kind that comes after a person has decided that crying doesn't help. His father, Martin, noticed. He noticed everything. That was, in a way, his profession. Martin was a tall man with plain clothes and an unhurried way of moving through the world. He drove a used sedan. He packed Noah's lunch himself every morning. He lived in a modest house on a tree-lined street in a mid-sized town in Ohio, and none of his neighbors knew his last name meant anything beyond the mailbox it was printed on. What they didn't know, what almost nobody knew, was that Martin Hale was worth $4.3 billion. And his son was being broken, quietly, every single day. Noah was not the kind of boy who attracted trouble. He was thoughtful and a little shy. He liked astronomy and old movies and building things with his hands. He had a small group of friends in 5th grade, and life had been easy enough, until the family moved to Crestfield, Ohio, 14 months ago. Martin had chosen Crestfield deliberately. He wanted Noah raised somewhere real. Somewhere without gates or private tutors or the particular. What he hadn't anticipated was Derek Paulson. Derek was 13, a year older than Noah, and the kind of boy who had learned early that making others feel small was the fastest way to feel large. He had a group of 3 friends who followed his lead without question. Together, they had decided that Noah, quiet, new, and easy to unsettle, was worth their attention. It started with small things. A shoved lunch tray. A mocking impression of the way Noah spoke. Whispered words in the hallway that were designed to land and stay. Noah didn't tell Martin directly. But fathers who are paying attention don't need to be told. Martin first saw it on a Thursday afternoon. He had picked Noah up from school, something he didn't do often, to avoid drawing attention, and was waiting near the side gate when he saw Derek and 2 of his friends corner Noah near the bike rack. Noah's backpack was on the ground. Derek was saying something with a wide smile on his face, leaning in close, while the others laughed. Noah stood very still. His hands were at his sides. His face had that particular blankness, the kind a person learns to put on when they've decided that reacting only makes things worse. Martin sat in his car and watched. His first instinct, the one that moved through him like heat, was to get out of that car immediately. To walk over there and end it in 60 seconds. He had the resources to dismantle Derek Paulson's entire world before dinner if he chose to. He could make calls. He could speak to principals and school boards and attorneys without breaking a sweat. But he didn't move. Not yet. Because he had learned, through years of building things and watching them fall apart and rebuilding them again, that the fastest solution is not always the right one. He needed to understand the whole picture first. That evening, Martin made Noah's favorite meal, chicken and rice with the sauce Noah had called the orange one since he was 4, and set it on the table without ceremony. They ate together the way they always did, with the television off and whatever conversation came naturally. Martin waited. Halfway through the meal, Noah said, "Dad, do you think some people are just mean? Like, born that way?" Martin set down his fork. "No," he said. "I think some people are hurting and they haven't figured out a better way to handle it." Noah looked at his plate. "What if you understand that and it still hurts anyway?" "Then you're being honest," Martin said. "Understanding why something happens doesn't make it hurt less. It just helps you decide what to do about it." Noah was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "There's this kid at school." And that was when he told Martin everything. It took 20 minutes. It came out unevenly, not in the order it happened, but in the order it still sat inside him. Martin listened without interrupting. He asked 2 questions. He did not offer solutions. When Noah finished, Martin simply said, "Thank you for telling me." Noah looked at him, a little surprised. "That's it?" "For now," Martin said. "Yes." Martin spent the next 3 days watching and learning. He spoke to Noah's homeroom teacher quietly, presenting himself as a concerned parent, nothing more. What he learned was unsurprising but still difficult to hear. The school was aware of Derek's behavior. There had been conversations and warnings. But Derek's father was influential in Crestfield, a local real estate developer who donated regularly to the school's athletics fund, and somehow, urgency around his son's behavior always seemed to soften. Martin said nothing reactive during that meeting. He thanked the teacher calmly and left. At home, he made calls of a different kind. He spoke to his legal team, not to threaten, not yet, but to understand his options clearly. He spoke to a child psychologist he trusted, asking how to support Noah through this without making it worse. He listened carefully to every answer. Then he looked into Derek's father. A man named Gary Paulson. Mid-level developer. 3 projects in Crestfield. 1 significant outstanding loan with a regional bank. Martin didn't do anything with that information immediately. He simply held it, the way you hold a card you haven't decided to play. Because what he really wanted, what he was still working toward, was the right solution. Not the powerful one. The right one. Noah had a good week, and then a bad one. The good week felt like maybe things were shifting. Derek seemed to pull back slightly, and Noah came home with some color in his face, talking about a science project he was excited about. Martin let himself feel cautious hope. Then on a Friday, Noah came home and went straight to his room. No explanation. No eye contact. Martin stood outside the bedroom door for a moment. He could hear nothing. That particular silence again. He knocked. "I'm not coming in. Just wanted to say dinner's at 6. A pause. Then Noah's voice, rough at the edges, "Okay. Also," Martin said through the door, "I found that documentary about Saturn you were looking for. We can watch it tonight if you want." Another pause. Longer. "Yeah," Noah said. "Okay." They watched the documentary after dinner. Noah fell asleep on the couch before it finished, and Martin sat beside him in the dark, the television still glowing, and felt something settle into certainty inside his chest. This had gone on long enough. The next morning, he made a call to his assistant, his real assistant, not the part-time one the neighbors thought was a cousin who helped with admin. "Set up a meeting," Martin said quietly. "Crestfield School Board. And get me Gary Paulson's business schedule." Martin did not walk into the school board meeting the way Martin Hale, Billionaire, might have. He walked in the way he always did, calmly, without drama, in clean but ordinary clothes. He sat at the table across from 4 board members and the school principal and spoke in a measured, unhurried voice. He laid out every incident. Dates, descriptions, the school's documented responses. He did not raise his voice. He did not make threats. He simply made it impossible to look away. The principal began the usual language, process, support systems, ongoing conversations. Martin let him finish. Then he said, "I want to be clear. I'm not here to cause a problem. I'm here because a problem already exists, and it has been allowed to continue. I'm asking you to fix it." The board members exchanged glances. One of them, a woman named Mrs. Okafor, leaned forward. "Mr. Hale, I want to assure you that we take this seriously." "Good," Martin said. "I'll give you 2 weeks." He stood, thanked them for their time, and left. In his car, he sat for a moment. Then he picked up his phone and dialed Gary Paulson's office directly. "Mr. Paulson," he said when the man answered, "my name is Martin Hale. You don't know me. But I think we should talk about our sons." Gary Paulson agreed to meet, curious, perhaps, or slightly unsettled by a call he couldn't quite place. They met at a coffee shop. Gary arrived first, already positioned with a confident ease. He was broad-shouldered, well-dressed, the kind of man used to being the most important person in a room. He sized Martin up quickly, plain jacket, quiet demeanor, and visibly relaxed. Martin let him. They talked about the boys first. Gary was careful but dismissive in the way that people are when they have been defending their child for so long it has become a reflex. Kids work these things out, he said. Derek's a good kid. High energy. I don't doubt he has good qualities, Martin said. But what he's been doing to my son isn't high energy. It's cruelty. And it needs to stop. Gary's jaw tightened slightly. I'm not sure a coffee chat is the right place to. I agree, Martin said simply. He set a business card on the table. Gary looked down. His expression changed slowly, the way weather changes, first a small shift, then a full turn. The card had only a name, a company, and a number. But the company was Hale Capital Group, and Gary Paulson knew that name. He looked up. Martin met his eyes without drama. I don't want anything from you, Gary, Martin said quietly. I just want it to stop. It stopped. Not because of fear alone, though that played its part. Gary Paulson had a genuine conversation with his son that week, the kind that comes when a parent stops defending and starts listening. Derek didn't transform overnight. But something in him shifted when his father sat down, turned off the television, and said, "Tell me why." What came out was its own difficult story, a boy who felt invisible at home, who had built a personality out of taking up space in ways that made others shrink. Gary heard things he hadn't known were happening inside his own house. Martin heard about this secondhand, from Mrs. Okafor, who called to update him 2 weeks later. At school, the environment changed. 2 of the board members pushed for a formal peer support program, something that had been discussed for years but never implemented. Mrs. Okafor became its lead advocate. Noah noticed the change before Martin told him anything about the meetings. He came home one afternoon and said, Derek was actually normal today. He didn't say anything. He just walked past. How did that feel? Martin asked. Noah thought about it. Weird, he said. But good weird. Martin nodded. Good weird is usually just the beginning of okay. Months passed. The house on the tree-lined street stayed the same, modest, warm, unremarkable from the outside. Noah joined the school's astronomy club. He made 2 new friends, a girl named Sophie who loved chemistry and a quiet boy named James who, it turned out, had his own difficult year. They ate lunch together every day. It wasn't dramatic. It was just good. Martin never told Noah the full details of what he had done. He told him only that he had spoken to the school and to Derek's father, ordinary things a parent might do. Noah didn't press for more. But one evening, Noah looked up from his homework and said, Dad, why don't we live somewhere bigger? I mean, you're smart. You could probably do really well if you tried. Martin looked at him for a long moment. Then he smiled, the real kind, the kind that reached his eyes. I am doing really well, he said. Noah seemed to think about that. Then he shrugged in the way 12-year-olds do when something makes sense but they don't want to admit it too easily, and went back to his homework. Martin looked around the small, quiet kitchen. The orange sauce simmering on the stove. His son's sneakers kicked off by the door. A life that looked ordinary from every angle. Some people spend their whole lives chasing power. Martin had spent his learning that the most important thing power can do is protect what matters, quietly, carefully, and without needing anyone to know.